Hello, y'all. What's up? Welcome back to another episode of Bad and Barred. It's your girl, Avi B. And on today's episode, I have a really good guest, and I am so excited. If you can't tell, I am hyped to dive into this conversation. I have the one and only Professor Jesse McCoy. He is a dynamic professor at Duke and also a dynamic housing attorney. I have had the pleasure of knowing you kind of peripherally and following you for a long time, way back when I was interested in law school. I hit you up and you gave me some advice about getting into North Carolina Central because it was my dream school. My daddy told me that all the best lawyers go to North Carolina Central. And I didn't know anybody at the time. So I hit up my uncle. He said, "Oh, I got the right person for you. You need to talk to Jesse." And I hit you up and you gave me some advice. I got into Central and here we are today. I was, Oh, yeah, I forgot. Okay, yeah. Yeah. So two dynamic black lawyers in the house today. And we're just gonna talk about what is happening in the world. On the last episode, I promised y'all that I was not gonna be talking about this orange man as much as I did last year. But unfortunately, he is, what's in the news. He's in the spotlight. He's hot right now. I still ain't gonna focus on him all season, but I just got to tackle a few things. And so I wanted to tap into your brilliant mind today, just to get into what's happening. This episode is called America Has a Problem, because right now, some stuff is shaking up. It's getting real. And I really want us to dive into the landscape of the changing of our government system, the structure, society as we know it. But then I also want to get into this idea of DEI and what it is and what's happening. I was recently on a Zoom call with Stacey Abrams, and she's been talking about this DEI thing and has formed a whole organization around changing the narrative around DEI. And so I want to talk about that too a little bit later. So let's hop right in. The very first concept that I want to talk to you about today is just like, what is democracy? Because we hear this word and we say that America is a democracy, but what does that really mean?
Well, first of all, congratulations. I saw the light flex. Knowing Stacey Abrams like that, she's just in the Rolodex. uh, Anyways, so when we talk about democracy, the fundamental principle of democracy is that the people, as a body politic, get to elect their leaders to make decisions for how the place will be governed,
Yeah.
or alternatively, elect representatives who then will go, right?
Right.
So the concept of democracy at its core is that we want everybody who's part of this society to be able to have a voice and express their opinion on what they want, this shared pool of resources that come from everybody's taxes, what you want them to do. The flaw of democracy is that it's never been fair. At least not in America. It's never been fair, right? So when you think about the history of people who didn't have the right to vote, minorities especially, women, people who didn't have the right to vote weren't able to participate in the creation of the framework that is the United States of America. And we are coming in on the back end, right? So there's a machine that's already been operating. We're saying, well, this machine isn't operating the way it's supposed to operate. People telling us, shut up, be quiet. It's been working well since 1776. Get out of our way. We're like, well, it's not working for me. And we're growing in our voice, our status, our finances to be able to be bigger contributors to the system. And what I think we're seeing right now is a rebuke of our contribution as we shut down quote unquote DEI policies.
Right. Yeah, so that's good. So like you said, it's like power to the people is how I think of it. Like the people have some voice, some say so in this thing, and I have been grappling with that lately because of exactly what you said, like the historical context of people of color, people of different sexual orientations, women, just people, outside of white men having some say in how this country is governed and if truly America is a democracy, right? Because we elect these people and we have these elections and have folks that we put into office, But in reality, whose interests are they representing? Is it the whole of society, or are they representing the people who look like them, sound like them, talk like them, and agree with them? And so when you think about democracy, I'm starting to really wonder if we are, what's truly meant to be a democracy in the way that our government is ran. What do you think about that?
So I think in the United States of America, we embrace capitalism before democracy, right?
Mm.
And what I mean by that is, you mentioned, we elect people, but we don't really elect anybody. The corporations elect who they want.
Okay.
They do their campaigns for campaign contributions, advertising, TV spots, all that stuff to push a machine that we feel like we're limited to the options that are put before us, which may be opposing options, right? Or maybe opposing corporations promoting opposing options. But it can really feel limiting at times when there are certain issues that your community is trying to deal with head on that neither one of the candidates seem to want to address, or when your contribution sometimes seems less valued, or either seems like it's adverse
Right.
to what the other party thinks. I also feel like in embracing capitalism, nothing against capitalism when it's fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism is just this economic theory that everybody should have equal opportunity to be able to go out and make the best person win. If I got a better product than you, then it sucks for you, right? It's just, I got a better product, right? But America has never been truly capitalist. We've been an unfair capitalist system. So we had people who enslaved our ancestors for centuries and had them doing free labor that made them into a superpower in the world.
Yeah.
And then once they were forced to free us because we were freeing ourselves, largely, they decided to change tune and say, okay, well, how do we take the riches that we have amassed and incorporate it into a system that perpetually keeps everybody from being able to participate and compete? So capitalism without competition isn't capitalism.
Yeah.
Right? And the problem is that for America especially, the things that we have used to market ourselves to the world oftentimes are coming from Black creators, Black people, but Black creators don't own it.
Yeah.
So we get marketed. Everybody wanted to be like Mike, right? Mike didn't own Mike at the time. Everybody wanted to be like LeBron and wear these, or be like Jay-Z or whatever. And those images get depicted all across the world to sell product that we don't own.
Yeah.
Right? So I think there's a bigger story to it. When it comes to politicians, though, it's kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy of the snake eating itself. If the politician knows, hey, it's going to cost $23 million to run the campaign I need to run to win this seat, you can go and try to do crowdsourcing, like, hey man, I'm on Cash App, what I'm saying? Send me something, and people might send you like $50, $100, right? But the corporation will be like, oh, 20 million, that's it. We got the 23 million, but we're gonna need you to do some stuff for us. And I think what we're seeing is, at some point, the corporations give you the impression that there is a democracy and free choice. But in actuality, they've already bought off and laid out what their agenda is going to be through that candidate. The last thing I'll say is, particularly with the times that we are in now, we have someone who is now sitting in the highest office in the United States who is able to say the quiet parts out loud that your coworkers and neighbors don't want to say, and has no bones about it. Like, he will do it. So this is going to be a whole new look, where this is the first time we're going to see corporations come out of the shadows and start saying, yeah, he doesn't like DEI, I don't like DEI either, right? And they're going to basically try us to say, what you going to do about it, right? So I'm stop there. I know.
That was a lot. That was good. I appreciate that. And what you said a second ago really resonates with me about them moving the mile marker, right? Like after slavery, when we start to free ourselves, and then, ultimately we get freed. The mile marker always shifts for Black folks in this country, and we will achieve and we will get ahead, then boom, it shifts and adjusts, even in education, right? Like Black women are the most educated group of people, but Now that we have bachelor's degrees, oh, now the standard is a master's degree. Like it always shifts for us. But one thing I can say is that we are a persevering people, and it's just like no matter what they try to throw, we always excel every time. And so I just am just in awe of who we are and who we've always been and the resilience that we have. One thing that I want to kind of shift into is what you were talking about a second ago with this man that's in the office right now. I just, hate saying his name because he likes that. He likes the attention. He's very much an attention whore. But this shift that we're seeing with our government system, with the rise of authoritarianism and the rise of fascism, these are words. These are big words that people are saying a lot. I'm a civil rights lawyer, and in all of these meetings and conferences and all of these Zooms and things, these two words keep popping up a lot. And I don't know if just regular everyday people have a deep understanding for what it means. And now we're starting to see like these images of Hitler and like all over TikTok, there are these Hitler sounds and just all of these images that we're starting to see in the media that I think we need to give some context to so that folks really have an understanding of what the threat currently is. So do you have any thoughts about those two concepts and want to share just briefly what they mean to you?
Absolutely. So authoritarianism and fascism kind of go hand in hand. The authoritarianism part is whenever there's a government that is implementing strict obedience to an authority at the expense of your own personal freedoms. So if a government is saying, hey, at one time in America, black people weren't allowed to freely walk somewhere without a pass from a white person signed, right? That is authoritarianism when the government supports and does this to the detriment of your freedom. Fascism is unique in that it takes the elements of authoritarianism, but it tries to market them as an embrace of a national standard, right? So whenever you hear people saying like "Make America Great Again," it's trying to unite people under a national standard so that they can have an element or an aspect to be proud of within themselves simply by being born a certain way, right? But it is also being used to stifle and oppress other people who are in the same community, right? So there's a reason why people get upset when they see somebody, with a MAGA hat on. There's a reason. That hat has a symbolic tone. There's something to it. It's kind of like a burning a cross. Like people know what that means, right? But what has happened is they have found a way to filter fascism through politics. So now it's almost you're un-American if you don't support the things that we're trying to do that are authoritarian, right? You're not with us. You're not part of us. And if you're not with us, then the reply is you need to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're not going to be. When in actuality, anybody who is born in America is deemed to be a citizen of the United States of America, which is why they're trying to attack the 14th Amendment. Is a whole other issue. But,
Right.
I think my concern, especially when we're talking about African American communities, right? We're not surprised or shocked. I think at this point, those of us who haven't checked out yet are trying to do our best to like get people back out here to regroup because we said it to we were blue in the face before the election.
Yes.
Like, look, dog, you see what this is. You don't want this, and people are like, no, yes, we do. Right? So we voted. I think black women was like 92% Harris. I think black men was like 84% Harris. You don't get numbers like that in an election unless all black people share some kind of unified. Like we all went to the meeting. We all like this. That's what we did. And it seems like nobody else in America was at the meeting, right? So this is what happens, and that's why people are checking out because it's like I did my part. I voted. I tried to tell y'all. Y'all didn't listen. You're going to have to feel it today. The harsh reality, though, is we are not included in the MAGA's concept of American. And you can evidence that based on their push against like DEI. Because one of the things that I also want to clear up for people is DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. This is kind of the offshoot of affirmative action, right? But DEI and affirmative action policies, even though they were developed by African American trailblazers, movement leaders, all the thought leaders, politicians, all that. They never quite benefited us directly, or at least not in priority, right? So the people who were the priority beneficiaries were white women. And because white women were the beneficiaries, then the dismantling of DEI isn't necessarily done in harm to the black community. It's harming the people in Appalachia, right? People who are like, how am I going to get my insulin if I don't have Medicaid? Ooh, sorry, Becky, you have to figure it out. You know, so that's the issue with fascism. It's like it's this othering of people who are your countrymen because of preconceived notions about their limitations or their inferiority, and to bolster you to feel better while they're taking from you too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you hit it on the head. When I think of fascism, like the example that I think is like this whole America first, America only. Like we've been hearing that so much, like on the campaign trails, particularly from Republicans. And it questions exactly what you just said. Well, who's considered American? Because when they're saying that, they are not thinking about us. When in reality, so much of black culture makes up the thread of America. Like there is no American culture without black people and without any other race of people, without women, without trans people, without gay people. Like there is no American culture without it, because we've always been known as this melting pot. And so when we think about who is considered American or who's worthy of the American flag, I think it just poses such a question that we are considered other, when in reality, when you look at the music, the style, the culture, the food, nobody is thinking about white people when you think those things. Nobody, nobody is like, ooh, I need this Irish dish as an American thing. Like this, I need this specific thing from white people. And so there, all of the culture is extracted from people of color, but then there's no valuation of our identity. And I just, it's so frustrating to think of the way that we are commodified but not valued. And when you talk about DEI and those concepts, I do find it interesting that you say that they haven't benefited black people. They not, at least not at the forefront. Exactly. Because for me, truthfully, like when I came out of law school, I went into a corporate firm. I lasted for 7 months. I hated it. It was very much, I was like a fish out of water. I could not take it. And when I got there, one of the things that they kept talking about in my interview was that we're one of the most diverse firms in the state of North Carolina. I'm looking on the website trying to figure out where. It wasn't until I got there that I realized that they meant that the firm was 50% white women. That's what they meant when they said we're the most diverse firm here. And I'm shooketh because what are you saying? So that is what they mean when they say diversity. Like that is who has benefited primarily from these policies and practices when it comes to DEI. Now, has there been some benefit to us? Yes. And like we're seeing with Target right now is that people are in an uproar because Target is like, okay, now we got to slow down the priorities on this. I think that in 2020, we saw the George Floyd uprising. We saw companies, corporations, everybody is like, okay, we need to commit to DEI without true thought about what that meant. And it was this front. And I feel like DEI was given like a black face, but in reality, behind closed doors, per usual, white women were the beneficiaries of that affirmative action and every other thing in the law that has been created to offset wrongs. That's what I think about when I think about affirmative action and DEI. Is we had these lawyers who were arguing these cases, and the purpose was to make right the wrongs that have been done to us for years and years and years to come. Y'all had a 400-year head start. Let us get ahead, or let us at least try to catch up. And they're using that language now against us to say policies and practices should not be based on race. They should be based on merit. If there was ever a merit-based system, we would have been at the front. We would have been ahead this whole time. They've always been based on race, except for it was for the white man. Like it's just, If you're white, you're the qualified race in this country. That's the stereotype, at least surrounding it. And for us, now there's this whole narrative that, oh, you're a DEI hire, you're a DEI hire. There was no merit. You're here because of your race. And the race consideration that could have been given was to make right the fact that if not for this policy, I would have never even been looked at in the first place. Like, they look at my name on my resume and see that I got this ghetto name, quote unquote, and I'm not even going to be considered. My merit is not even looked at. And so it's frustrating. And when you were talking a second ago about people taking a step back and saying, now look, I'm really grappling with that right now. My last episode was about the 92% saying that it's time to rest and, sit back. And I'm trying to find the balance because that's not innately who I am. I'm not a do nothing type of person. I am an actor. I'm an activist. I got to take action. I'm a mobilizer. I'm passionate about the progress of my people. And so I'm trying to figure out the healthy balance because I also am not going to continue to try to save America. America ain't thinking about me. It's clear. And so, I want to know your opinion about that and what you're doing in this moment. And if you feel compelled to rest, because also I understand that Black people tired and Black people are burnt out and we always fighting everybody else's battle. So I get that too. I get that. So I want to know what you think.
I'm going to tell you what I'm doing, right? What I'm doing is I'm laughing. That's what I'm doing. People work so hard to make sure that folks from certain communities don't get access to the things that make life worth living, right? But every time I log into a social media app and I see people who didn't think they qualified or who didn't think they were covered by public benefits, DEI initiatives, whatever, suffering, it makes me have joy. And then I go to the comments and I look at all the other people who look like me with comments just like mine. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we all got job. We all working. I think one of the things that I guess, I think in America, there's like two main cultures, right? There's white and Black. And I think white culture has some notions about what Black culture is and what Black culture does, but they don't know us like that, right? We know them because we used to work in their houses. We used to raise their kids. Like, we know them. They don't know us.
Right.
So the benefit for us is we know that anytime we step outside the house, we're navigating two Americas.
Yep.
Right? Who am I showing up for a job interview is very different than who I am when I show up at the barbershop, right?
Right.
You got to be able to navigate that. The better you get at it, the more accepted you are. And the more accepted you are, the more opportunities open up.
Right.
Because ultimately, we already know, I think every Black person from the time that they were 2 years old got to saying you got to be twice as good to have half as much, right? So we've already been working hard. We had to work hard because we weren't going to get the opportunity, right? And if you do, you got to do everything you can not to lose it. But in doing that stuff makes, pressure makes diamonds, right? So people now are like, yeah, I can balance doing podcasting, plus working a job as a lawyer, plus teaching law school. You can do all that. So if you cut off one of my avenues, I'm just going to flip to the other avenues. Like, this is what we do. We've been adapting. And I keep a picture. I always tell my students, I keep a picture of my great-great-grandmother, my enslaved great-great-grandmother on my phone, because I've been able to walk into rooms that she could never imagine that I would have been able to walk into as somebody who was enslaved in North Carolina, right?
Wow.
And I take her with me, right? So it's like, okay, these people think I'm crazy. They think I'm act crazy. But I know what I am. I know what I can do. I know I have value. I think also when I was growing up, a lot of people, I grew up in the 80s where before the crack epidemic, everybody's goal was to graduate from high school and work at the factory, right? That's what you wanted. And the factory you worked at 30 years, factory's going to take care of you, give you a pension, you're good. Well, all those factories started closing and people didn't have anything else. So folks started giving up on the dream. That's what made the crack epidemic so big. It was like, it's money, I can feed my kids now. We didn't think about the consequences of what was going to happen and the deterioration of the community and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But now, having gone through that and going through the 90s and this emergence of Black culture, hip-hop, all this stuff, and coming back, what we have learned from this is, okay, we may not have access to the things that America values, right? We may not have access to get the Fortune 500 company job with the yacht and all. We may not have that, right? But we don't necessarily need that. If we got community, if we got people who love us, like truly, because think about, I told my wife last night, the thing about people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, these were spoiled rich people who don't have friends, right? That's why they want to send rockets to Mars, right? Like, it's, you can write a check right now and end world hunger. Like you could do that.
Okay.
But you'd rather send a rocket to Mars, right? They don't have a connection. Whereas for us, even the person that grew up with me that has nothing will always have something because he with me, right?
That part.
It's just different. It's different.
Yeah.
So I think we've been growing. We've been observing their culture. They haven't been observing ours. American history was required. African American history was an elective, right? So we've learned two Americas wholeheartedly, and that's why even for our progressive friends on the other side of the race line, sometimes it's difficult for them to understand why we move how we move or why we think, and we try to tell them, but they haven't had that lived experience. And then after the fact, when it's all said and done, they're like,
yes,
no, right? It's like when we tried to tell you, I don't know what you want us to do now.
Yes.
But I'm gonna go back and get my money. You enjoy. Try to get you a benefit or some stamps or something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's the way it is. And I think the perception that has historically been perpetuated is black people living off the government, living off handouts, lazy, not working, all that stuff, right? But you also look around and you see all these black people that's winning, and I'm like, somebody wrong, right?
Okay.
Somebody wrong. So I don't mind your perceptions. People can think of me what they want to think of me, right? But the perceptions mess you up if you, Mr. White Person, are the one on food stamps, right? So when you get the food stamp program cut, you think you hurting me.
Okay.
But I'm at the grocery store. I'm at Publix eating good.
That part. That whole part.
You trying to figure out how you gonna eat, right? It's manipulation because you think one day I could be Elon Musk, right? Meanwhile, you working at Walmart still, right? Elon ain't came to get you yet, and the rest of us have moved by because we're not waiting on Elon, right? We gonna go get it. That's what we do. So I say all that to say, I think one, I'm going to be relaxing and laughing right now, right? I'm just going to enjoy myself. Life is good right now. And I believe in a God that's always going to take care of me wherever I got to go, right? The second part of this is I will never blame black people for anything, right? I just feel like as a demographic, there has been too much done to us for me to ever be like, see, the problem with us is I can't do that, right? The problem is that we were trafficked from a whole nother continent and put in a situation where we became work capital with no value in our system. And I think you can't overcome that without reparations. Like, you can't. So it's not even that people are trying. I have so many talks with people in the housing world where they're like, what can we do to fix housing inequality? What can we do? And I say reparations. And they say, okay, we'll see you later. Nobody wants to fix it. They just want to talk about fixing it, right? So I think that the whole thing about black people is do whatever you got to do to preserve your peace. But at the end of the day, I look at America as an egg, right? The egg has a hard white shell. That's racism, right? The hard white shell. And it's been holding on for as long as it can. But underneath that shell, there have been black communities, brown communities, Asian communities working hard. And they just grew a beak and some legs. And they're starting to peek out, right? It's starting to break. And the chicken is starting to come out. So in a quest to keep us inside the egg, they have to exert power in a way that they think they have to exert power to keep us confined. Yeah. And I think the problem is that only works if the people inside accept confinement. Right? You're like, no, I can do it. Oh, you might stop my avenue of going to this school with this, federal loan. So it just means I got to do something different. I got to get it a different way. And we've remade ourselves so many times that at this point, it's just everything. Life is just side hustles for us. the side hustles for us. It's like, oh, okay, I can't do this no more. All right, well, I'll go be a doctor then.
Right. Right. No, literally.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's got to be a reckoning at some point. And again, the other thing I guess I should say too, all this is in response to Barack Obama being a president and being handsome and people not being able to handle that, right? So like, not only were you a president and a good president at that, but the swag levels was like on a thousand. And they're like, no, that is not the representation of America that we want. So instead, you go to the polar opposite to get this person who can't even read without putting in ad libs. Very icy, very icy. Right? He can't get those sentences. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he's a puppet that everybody knows they can just use and get what they want if you got money, right? And you put him here to say the things that you can't say. Yep. There's a reason why when he comes in power, we got, Charlottesville, and we got January 6th, and we got, there's a reason for that. People are like, oh, he's cool with it. You see, he just pardoned everybody for January 6th. Like, he's cool with it.
Right.
But while they up here, and I should say also, I was in Atlanta when Charlottesville happened. And I know that people say it's supposed to be a tragedy, right? But to wake up on a Saturday morning and cut on CNN and see people dressed like Captain America walking down angry, and then just see random black folks spraying them in the face with Lysol was hilarious to me. And it's moments I'll never forget. I had the luxury of meeting the vice chancellor of Charlottesville's black dude, and he was like a hero that day. He just seemed like, he had everything under control. He's like, if they want to walk, they can walk, they can do what they want to do. It is what it is. But just seeing people who were so upset that you dress up like Marvel superheroes to come down here where everybody else is trying to go to work, you know what I'm saying? To me, it's comedy. It's comedy, right? So you have to feel like you're losing something if you're willing to do all that. And I just feel like people who got money, they're not out there. People who actually got status, they not out there.
Yeah.
Minorities, they not out unless they getting a laugh and having a good time or they want to fight. They're not out there. It's just you. Like, it's just, they don't see themselves as weird because there's more than one of them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like a whole group of incels. We're going to dress up like Captain America tomorrow and we're going to be Avengers in the name of Trump. Like, okay.
Do you?
I'm laughing. I'm resting. I'm laughing. I will challenge my people. I don't want us to get away from it.
Yeah.
I will challenge my people to say, don't overextend yourself, but do help in the fields where you are.
Yeah.
Right? So if you work, in civil rights, be the best civil rights advocate you can be. If you work in housekeeping, be the best housekeeper you can be, and then use some of that to help people in the community to get to the next level. I'm not asking you to go out here and be Superman. Like, please don't, because you'll burn out. And at the end of the day, your family needs you. The people who really matter isn't your job. It isn't, the politicians. It's your kids. It's your spouse. It's your parents. They rely on you. And if something happens to you, they will mourn you. Everything else is just transactional, right? So no need, we won't have to fight battles. Some of these battles already been fought, and our names have been said in rooms we haven't even walked in yet. We just have to make sure that we are prepared for when the opportunity arises, and that we don't get discouraged just if a door shuts. Because for every door shutting, there's a door opening that you just ain't seen yet, right? That's all.
Yeah.
Like, I never would have imagined, I grew up in North Durham, like old North Durham, a very different place than it is.
Yeah.
Right? And I never would have imagined as a kid growing up here that the university that I used to drive by all the time or ride by all the time and didn't ever see black people. I never guessed they'd be like, oh, we really want you to come teach our students. I never would have guessed that, right? It happened. It just worked out that way. And because of that, I'm going to relish the experience, but I'm still going back to North Durham to help the kids out at Carrington Middle School whenever they, need counseling, guidance, whatever, to help them make better decisions than the people I grew up with had to make. That's all we do. Yeah. And that's not asking a lot. It don't take a lot. It's 1 or 2 days a month. And then you go back to doing what you do. So do what you can.
Yeah.
Don't stress. This man don't have no power over you, right? I got no power over you.
Yeah.
If it's something that you want, there's a federal program. You have to be cognizant that he's going to cut funding and impose his own virtues. But even with the DEI stuff, for the schools that were targets of the affirmative action case, what we've seen is marginal black increase in the student enrollment, and that's because on merit we still got it like that.
Yep.
So I don't know. There are some people who would be like up in an uproar. Folks I respect, Angela Rye, all them, who would be like, "No, you got to just do it." I'm like, you do what works for you. Have some laughs along the way. Enjoy the people that really matter, and just do what you can in your space.
So Jesse, what I'm hearing is, what you saying is, we unstoppable either way. Is that what you saying? Is no matter what they do, no matter what policy they enact, we unstoppable. That's what I'm getting.
You are a descendant of people who built pyramids out of sand, right? You can't, like, some stuff can't be manufactured. It's in you. It's in you. That's what we come from. People who made music out of nothing, out of like fruit bowls, right? Like we have so much within us, but we have been taught for so many years that we were worthless and valueless, that we have, sometimes people in our community have accepted that. And because you feel you're worthless, you don't challenge yourself to be better. My thing is, they have to do that, because if they make you feel worthless, one, it makes you a better slave, right? If you feel you don't have value, you're just going to do what I tell you to do. Second, they also have this prison industrial complex. So they like, you ain't going to be nothing anyway. You might as well sell crack to your community and destroy your community so you can come, then be a slave as a felon, and work for us, whatever. All right? But then they turn around and put somebody with 36 felonies in the White House, right? It's hypocrisy. They also need you to not want to go back to your community to organize or to do things or to vote or whatever. They want you to just be cool with the status quo. Like, just play PlayStation, be on TikTok, and chill. That's what they want you to do. Right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not telling you not to do that. I'm saying you can do that and mentor somebody. You can do that and start a program for kids after school. You can do that. And it don't take much.
Right.
And after that, our collective unity has done more to advance our interest in this country than anything. So anytime that you see people like Martin Luther King used to use the churches, like churches gonna put people out to help, right? If people who come in the community and they like, oh, I got a basketball camp is gonna put people out to help. It does not take much.
Yeah.
So I just don't want people to feel like I gotta be Thurgood Marshall arguing cases in 52 states, right? All the way up to the Supreme Court. Like, no. He did his time. He did this stuff. We are many, and we just need to pick our zones. And it helps if we know people in our Rolodex who do things we don't do, so that we can say, hey, I'm trying to get the kids haircuts. I'm not a barber. You are, right? What can we do to make this program work? Boom, boom, boom. Turn that into somebody who works in suits. Hey, can we get kids a suit so they can practice professionalism, interviewing skills, whatever? All right, boom. Everybody has their role. We don't have to try to reinvent the wheel, and we don't have to try to mingle ourselves in American culture per se, beyond just getting our job to pay bills. Right?
Yeah. What you're saying is resonating with me so deeply, because when I came on at this job, one of the interview questions was like, what does DEI mean to you, and how can we ensure that we are, making you feel included or whatever. And I'm here, and I'm the only Black lawyer, as is the case has been the case for most of my career. I've been the only Black woman, Black lawyer, Black in any room, sadly. And I'm always trying to figure out, how can I get another one in this room? But my answer to that question was, pay me. All that other stuff y'all talking, I don't care about none of that. It's nothing that you can do in this culture and all these things that you say, these policies, all this stuff. White supremacy still is the thread of this country. It's who it is. P-A-Y me. That's what DEI means to me. All that other stuff is what it is, because give me my money and I'm gonna make myself thrive wherever it is that I am. Make sure that my salary look like that white man's. That's what you could do for DEI for me. That's it. All that other stuff is a bunch of smoke and mirrors. And so What am I doing in this moment? I have a little sister. She's Gen Z, and she's been panicking, like heart palpitations, like, oh my God, I can't take this, all the things. And I'm like, first of all, we've been here before. This is not our first racist president. Breathe, stretch, shake, drink some water, and go get your money, first of all. But I have, for the sake of self-preservation, this is not necessarily the best approach to take. I will acknowledge that. But everything that's happened, I'll acknowledge that I'm a civil rights lawyer by day. So I am still actively fighting for the people. But everything that's happened, I'm like, I don't give food stamps. That does not impact me daily. It doesn't. None of the things that he's done have changed the trajectory or will change the trajectory of my life in some major way. And so I'm like, I'm not about to have an anxiety attack over this man who's going back and forth with his pen all day, every day. I told my sister yesterday, I was like, somebody need to go in the White House. I don't know if you've seen the movie, what is it called? Is it Inside Out with all the little characters? I don't know. I have a toddler. And so Inside Out 2, the little orange one, anxiety. I was like, somebody need to go in the White House and look at him and scream, anxiety, stop!
So my thing with all that, so he's the symbol, of course. He's going to do what he says. But what I would challenge people to do is, it's not about what he says, it's about what will your congressman support. Right? So, executive orders only last for so long, supported by congressional legislation.
Right.
So call your congressman, or email nowadays, or TikTok, whatever they do, right? Your congressperson, and say, how you feel about that? Right? And if the person's like, yeah, I'm all for it, then maybe you need to start thinking about somebody else to be your congressman for the next election cycle, because we got, midterms coming up in 2 years.
Right.
So we're going ahead and start galvanizing now.
Yeah.
So that can happen. The other thing is, I also feel like we get wrapped up a lot in politics at the highest level of federal government, right? But so much of the stuff that really holds people back is state-based, and I just don't hear as many people talking about what's going on with state government. Like, I know people don't even know who their governor is, right? And that's not good, right? There are state-based issues that need to be addressed as well, and local issues at that matter that need to be addressed that impact you way more. I think that for the history of this country, we've always expected the federal government, just because of the way that it was positioned, to support a bare minimum standard of what our quality of life would be, right? So federal government was the one who, maybe they didn't want integration, but once the court said integrate at all delivery speed, they sent troops in to make it happen, right? I think that's what we relied on. Like, federal government was always kind of a, maybe they don't want to do it, but they're gonna do it type place. Now, a lot of people who've never lived through that are seeing the federal government in some form of collapse or change. And they're like, okay, who do we trust if we can't trust the feds? And I'm like, no. This government at all levels operates off of your tax money, right? This not, you can't tell me what you are or aren't going to do for me if we pay your salary. Now, if it's just me saying it, not a big deal, right? They can ignore me. But if it's all of us saying it, that is a little bit harder to ignore, right? So I encourage people to contact their congressperson. It used to sound corny and lame, like, call your congressman. But I encourage people, because some congress people are cool. Some of them got super cool staffs that'll help you with resources and all kinds of things. Some of them are horrible people, and those are the folks you need to know about. You can't just go off of campaign ads when it comes to voting season and make decisions. I also feel like, since we're talking about government, I think it's also important for people to kind of know what government does, right? I've been a little disheartened, especially during election season, of going to barbershops and people saying, well, Joe Biden could have did X, Y, and Z, and he ain't do it. And I'm like, Joe Biden can't get you out of school early. Like, that's not really on him to do this, right? So finding out like what roles do what, who you need to talk to get stuff done, all those things are critically important. In my professional role, I am trying to change systems, right?
Yeah.
I never allow what is happening in the White House to deter what's going on, because I don't think what happens in the White House is the oppression. I think it's the institutions that capitulate to what happens in the White House. So when we got institutions that say we're not going to take a stand for undocumented people because we support what the White House is doing, well, you're the oppressor, right? It's not him. He's just signing stuff, right? And so it's this tension of people always want to do what looks popular.
Yeah.
And at the time of George Floyd, what looked popular was, oh, we support Black Lives Matter and we're going to bow down with kente cloths. All the symbolic stuff that we don't even really care about like that, right? All the symbolic stuff. But now that tide has changed. Now, the woke culture, allegedly, that's what they're calling us, right? The woke culture has infiltrated the system. So this is their response to do away with DEI, do away with anti-wokeness, do away with that. But in so doing, it was the woke culture, allegedly, if you want to call it that, that pushed us to challenge our beliefs in the first place to create those policies. And it wasn't even just something that we benefited from. It was the fact that other people saw a way to capitalize off of the struggles that we were already fighting. And they made it work for them, right? Whereas we were like, okay, well, we hope that it'll trickle down, and then, Sally gets her job. She'll remember that I helped with a policy, and she'll come back and get me. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, right?
Right.
But I think we're worth more than that. I think we're worth being able to go out and pursue our dreams and to be active participants because we're paying for it, right? So nobody can tell me anything. Like, if you talk to your congressperson or your general assemblyman and they try to be short with you or whatever the case may be, just remind them, right? Like, I pay for this. And if they say, well, I don't care, all right, tell your friends what they said, right? Tell your friends and go out and make adjustments accordingly, or think maybe you the person that need to run for that seat.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Yep, you hit the nail on the head. And in addition to congressional power as a check, I also here lately have been enlightened by the courts because, at the end of the day, we have this 3-party system where there are checks and balances. So while he's sitting up there with his Sharpie, his highlighter, and his pen going to work, the courts have been saying, hold up, wait a minute, that is unconstitutional. And I'm really thankful for Joe Biden and several other Democratic presidents who made sure that there were judges in place who understood the Constitution. And so I've been encouraged by the federal court stepping in. The Supreme Court is another story. We ain't got time for that today. But and I'm enlightened by the power of the courts, and that's kind of been also what's been fueling me to continue doing the work that I've been doing as a form of checks and balances. My thing that I've also been encouraging people to do is really, like what you said, community care. Everybody talks about self-care. I'm thankful for self-care. Sure, go get your hair, nails, whatever, tend to your spirit. But like, God did not put us here to do life in silos. We're not meant to do life alone. Community care and, like you said, checking on your next door neighbor gets you so much further than you going to get your nails done or whatever. I'm not trying to diminish the value of self-care, but community care right now is just so imperative, because what they say on the TV is one thing, but when you sitting with your neighbor and you're having conversations, it is a completely different thing to sit and talk and be with people. Mm-hmm. And there are certain things that they feel emboldened to say. I live in a very little rural part of the town right outside of Raleigh, and I see these white people out here that look like the people who were out there in Charlottesville. I see them in the grocery store every day, and I say, hey, how you doing? I open the door for them. I'm not, anyways, whole thing. Being with people, in community with people, and sitting with people and loving on people is, I think, a particular call to action right now. It's just really leaning into community. So whether that means you out here on the front lines, marching and protesting, yelling, hollering, and screaming, you can do that if you want to. or cooking a meal for your next door neighbor. And like you said, showing up where it is that you show up every single day as your best self. I think that is impactful in and of itself. And so I'm encouraged by this conversation. We are about to wrap because we're heading into our time limit. On an ending note, I heard a lot today, and I've learned so much from you. I love talking to Black folks that are smart, Black people with brains, just, really do something from a spirit. But I want to know, do we need to get up out of here? What you think? Do we need to be, jumping ship? Do Black people need to be finding somewhere else to go? I was talking to my mom last night, and we were cracking up about a video that we saw of a Black woman who said, "Deport me. You're worried about the Hispanics. Send me back to Africa. Please get me out of here. Once you find my country of origin, feel free to deport me." And we were cracking up about that. So what do you think?
I try my best to travel. I think every Black person should travel and leave the country for a little while, just to see how the reception is when you go to places like Ghana, Nigeria, or even, the Caribbean, whatever. See your reception. It's very different.
Yeah.
A Black person. They look at you as an American.
Okay.
It's different, right? I also think this. I have known enough people in Ghana who have had issues with this influx. So we've had like this return to Ghana, and a lot of people have been investing and buying houses and all that stuff. But the problem is that American dollar is strong, and it is causing housing crises for people in Ghana when you are actually creating the gentrification that you're running from in America, right? So we don't want to cause problems, and you certainly don't want to take American attitudes abroad and be like, a lot of these places are more communal and community-based. And if you go over there and be like, but mine, that's a problem, right? What I will say is this. My answer to that question would be, I'm not going nowhere, right? And it's not that those other places aren't cool. I can go there with a passport. That's good. I'm not going anywhere because I feel like our ancestors had blood, sweat, and tears to find their little piece of happiness and freedom here, right? We don't know where we come from initially, right? But here we are. We're going to make family. We're going to make community here. And we built this place, right? And just because the people we built it for don't want to pay us for it, doesn't mean it's not ours, right? It's still ours. Mm-hmm. So my thing is, why would I leave what was supposed to be mine, right? This is my stuff. So it's just a matter of us saying, okay, take your breaks, go to other places, vacation, enjoy yourself, get you a coconut milkshake, all that stuff, right? But when you come back here, you just need to come back with the focus that nobody, regardless of what they look like, can move me from something that is my birthright to something that is mine. On top of that, the other problem that people have is you typically have to have some kind of thread to the United States. And what I mean by that is nobody's moving to Ghana and getting a Ghanaian job. The money is not enough, right? You need to keep the American job to have American dollars because I think it's like 17 CD to $1, right? So your dollar goes further. You can be a king in Accra, Ghana, right? But you got to keep that American job, okay? So because you're still going to be contributing to the American economy in some way, shape, or form, or at least benefiting from the American economy in some way, shape, or form, I think there's even more reason to not give up the right to it. It's yours, right? You were born into it. It's yours. I also feel like people don't necessarily look at America like from a culture perspective. But even when you talk about the concept of being Black in America, Black people from Florida ain't the same as Black people from New York.
Okay.
Black people from Chicago, Black people from LA. We got different cultures based on geography. And it's what makes us amazing. There are some things we share. There are some foods we share, some dances we share, experiences we share. But there are also things that make us different that we can take back to our respective areas and say, well, maybe we're looking at this wrong, right? So I think it's the cultural diversity that we already have within our own culture here. And I ain't even talking about adding like the West Indian people and African people, whatever, who add spice to our culture, right? So it's something that I feel like our issue has always been running into walls that were erected by white supremacy to keep us from getting where we're trying to go, right? But white supremacy, they're going to do what they want to do, right? That's why you take the break and you go other places at least once a year and rejuvenate, right? But you come back here. Last thing, people who are over in other places look at us differently. And when you travel the world, what you realize very quickly is that being black, you are not a minority as you are in America. Black is the global majority. Yeah. Right? So there are people who are going to say, okay, well, if we can rely on you, there are certain things that we might be able to do in our community, in South Africa, or whatever the case may be, to help there. And they're going to respect you because of the tie to the United States. Yeah. So, when I was in Ghana last time, there was opportunity for people to teach at the university, right? They don't just give opportunities to teach at university to anybody, but they're like, well, you teach American, you teach at university. And you keep those avenues open, right? So you can go. I know a lot of people that left, moved to Ghana, doing well, still getting that American dollar. Okay. But they go do what they want to do. I know people in Spain, France, you name it, right? But my thing is this. At some point, America is going to have to get in line and get it together, right? You're not stopping black people from becoming successful. There's too many of us. The cat's out the bag, right? You're not stopping black people from making demands for what they want from their government. We've had too many examples at this point, right? You're not stopping us. So either you're going to learn to live with us and value our contributions and opinions, or you're going to keep looking stupid like Captain America while we sit here getting money and laughing at you eating popcorn on TV. Yep. Right? So that's really the option. That's real. But I don't feel like anybody should feel like they got to leave. If Donald Trump decides he going to weaponize people and start sending the military after folks, okay, that's different. But even the military at this point is so integrated. Right, like I'm from a family. A lot of people in the military. Same. So where you gonna go? They not coming to get me. You know what I'm saying? They'll be like, nah, we gonna sit this one out, chief. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, it's whatever. People only react with violence and animosity proactively when they are afraid of what you have to contribute. Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, we'd all be singing Kumbaya. Yep. But you so scared, probably from guilt of what you did to my ancestors, and you scared that we might come up and do it to you, right? But we don't even think like that. Nope. Our culture isn't even built on conquest. Our culture is built on relationship. Yeah. So if you don't understand that, you've missed the mark on black culture, and it's always going to be, oh, they're trying to get me. They're trying to do this. They're trying to... No, that's what y'all would do. Yeah. We've been over here. We just trying to eat. We trying to watch the game. You know what I'm saying? We trying to go out. You know what I'm saying? We chilling. Right. We chilling. We were making music in pyramids. Y'all were killing each other. Right? It's a difference, right?
Yes, and I've been thinking about that so much with just how much we occupy their mental space. Like with this DEI stuff, this man's been in the White House for 2 weeks. That's all he's talking about. Absolutely. He lived, sleep, eat, and breathe blackness. And nobody's thinking about, like, I don't spend any of my time wondering what they are doing. Ever. Like, but they live in, like, they're obsessed. There's this obsession with blackness and black excellence. And it's just, if that's not a testament to who we are and how bomb we are and how great we are and how God's divine hand is on us, then I don't know what else is. And yes, to traveling, I'll never forget, my favorite place in the world is Jamaica. I was sitting at a bar. There was some white people who were there before me. The bartender came over to me and I was like, oh no, they were here first. And he was like, oh no, honey, you in my country. You first class citizen here. What can I get for you? I was like, yes, this is great.
Everybody needs to have that experience. Can you imagine? I grew up with people who have never left home. Right? The saddest thing, you never left your block. Yeah. Right? And you got notions about people from South Durham, East Durham, right? Yeah. There's a whole world out here.
A whole world.
Most places in the world, not all, but most places in the world, we are beloved. Now, people might call you Michael Jordan, right? They might be like, Michael Jordan! Like, but at the same time, we aren't hated.
Right.
valued and appreciated. People have emulated us. They try to do karaoke songs with Michael Jackson. Like, they like that stuff, right? It's our currency. But I think all that stuff is created from our ingenuity. Like,
Yeah.
we don't even try to be cool than we be cool.
Ooh.
That's us.
Okay.
That's who we are, right? And the fact that you can't bottle that up
Nope.
and like take it to a different culture and just inject them with it and they get it, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
It's a good experience that we all understand.
Yep.
That everybody didn't have the fortune of doing, but it's something we created because that's our life. We knew we weren't necessarily going to be the person in the corporate boardroom at Forbes 500 whatever. Maybe not.
Don't have no desire to. That's never been my desire.
Exactly. But even like the quest for money comes from the quest for conquest. Like, it's the same thing. Like, I gotta have it all. Nobody else can have anything. And that's not how we were. We were a culture of people who shared. Right? So it's like, oh, I'm gonna get mine, but I'm gonna make sure I look out for y'all. I gotta make sure when I get on, put y'all on. That's our culture. Right? So we never needed DEI. And to go back to one thing you said earlier, I know you said you had an interview and they asked you about DEI initiatives and what they could do. And my thing is this: if you gotta ask me, this ain't the place for me. You gotta ask me, that means it's a problem, and you trying to get me as a minority to speak for all minorities on what you need to do to make me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you handled it the way you did because yes, I'm here transactionally. I'm here for the thing. But what I'm gonna say, if it's me, I'm gonna be like, well, you need to fire yourself and hire someone. And then we'll be real good. We'll tell them what the game plan is and how to get to what we're trying to do. Like, it's one of those things where like I think people are so cocooned in privilege and cocooned even in housing, folks don't. A lot of people have never lived in a community with other minorities.
Yeah.
Right. You see a white space, you assume it's a white world. That's all it is. So when you finally see one, it's like, I don't know if I should be afraid.
They're not supposed to be here.
Right. I don't know if Dad taught me I'm supposed to be afraid. I don't know if I'm supposed to be overly nice. I don't know if I'm cool enough. I don't know if I look good enough. I don't know if I'm smart. Like, it's all these like internal things that go through when all we saying is, hey. It's different. For us, it's not the same impact. I think for us, it's more so like, what you doing here? Like, it's the side I like, you trying to take something else on. So I just think there's cultural differences. I don't think one group of people is better or worse than another group of people. I think that one group of people just haven't been trained or haven't had enough experiences to be embraced in a culture without coming in with a conquest mindset.
Yep.
Right? And you can't come out and try to conquest black people because that's gonna make folks hate you and probably gonna get you, jawed up. So you can't do that. Like if you come over and we grilling, we cooking, whatever, and you eat, we having a good time. That is a privilege. You are honored to be in that space,
right?
To be able to get something from that table or that grill or that oven or whatever.
Yeah,
you need to appreciate it. But
yeah,
they don't look at that.
No,
take my job.
I tell white people all the time, I used to do these trainings with Restorative Justice Durham. I used to train prosecutors and defense attorneys in Durham. I loved it. And in these spaces, even with progressive white people, they're like, well, I just don't know what to do, And I had one white girl who came up to me after a training and was like, have you listened to the new Beyonce album? And I'm like, well, who's Beyonce? Because why are you asking me that? Just come up to me and say, hey, how you doing? My number one rule for white people trying to figure out how to navigate black spaces is don't be weird. Just be human. I'm a human. Talk to me like I am a human. Don't come to me with no black agenda. Have you listened to the new Beyonce album? Why you ain't ask nobody else in here that? Why you ain't ask the white people that? Because now I'm going to act like I don't know who Beyonce is, even though I'm a stan. Because you being weird to me, so now I'm about to be weird to you. Like, why are you doing that? Don't be weird. Just talk to me like I am a human being. I am a human that is deserving of decency and respect. And I'm going to give you that because that's who I am, So My God, I feel like we could go on and on for hours. This has been so good. I really appreciate this. I have learned, like I said, so much from you in this conversation, but I am also leaving feeling very inspired. I feel like the past couple of weeks, like there's been so much to the point where like you feel anxious, you don't know which way to turn. There, maybe even is some like worrying or diminishing of self-value. And I hope that the people who listen to this, especially the Black folks who listen to this, also feel that same sense of encouragement and inspired that I feel after having this conversation, because I think you're right. Like, there's nothing that can stop us. It's nothing that can stop me. Like, I am a millennial attorney. I got these ghetto nails, as they say. I'm creative. There's so many facets of who we are. And I can go in a courtroom and argue, but I can also, like I said, rock these blinged out nails and rock my big hoops and my blonde highlights, because we just cool like that. It is, like you said, it's not on us, it's in us. It's innately who we are. And I just hope that people who listen feel encouraged by that, whether you're in the boardroom, you in McDougal Terrace, wherever it is that you are in the world. Like, you are popping, you are amazing, you're dynamic, and there are people who are working tirelessly to suppress who you are. So don't suppress who you are within yourself.
And let them know there's people working tirelessly to make sure that them people trying to suppress you gotta back up off you.
Okay. Okay.
So, it balances out.
Every time. Yeah. So thank you so much, Professor Jesse, for being here. This has been dynamic. And maybe we'll have you again if you got more that you want to say. This is always an open space. I just want to say thank you so much. And for those who are listening, thank you for tuning in to another episode. And we will see y'all on the other side. All right.